And I'm just gonna give my speculation opinion right now. But based on what she just said right now, her name is Aya. I could only imagine, like, so she basically said that these institutions are mega bullish, right? Now, I could only imagine what some of these institutions that are already working with Metallicus, which is the only BSA compliant ecosystem in the entire world. I could only imagine how bullish these folks are if these institutions on that side of the fence are already using DeFi. Again, I'm just use your imagination. And one of the video clips that I'm going to play today, once we get on the topic, which we're probably going to get on it right now, but you're going to hear the CEO of St. Cloud Credit Union get extremely bullish on DeFi. And he even talks about a flip of the switch moment, which is extremely bullish as well. But yeah.
I don't know if you have the clip of Marshall Hayner saying what he said here in this Twitter post on March 12th, 2026, that METALLICUS is the only on-chain BSA compliant decentralized finance platform in the world. He just recently said it at the GAC event. But this just goes hand in hand with what we're in an attempt to try to show you guys that DeFi is not the uncertain, uneasy, crappy user interface experience that it was even just a year ago. It has matured. It has changed substantially if you are operating on platforms that are regulatory compliant, like Soil, built out on the XRPL, first fully regulated DeFi protocol on the XRPL, confirmed by Ripple themselves. You got Upshift. You guys just heard the CEO and the co-founder of August and the co-founder of Upshift talk about how institutions are depositing on the platform because they trust them. Here you have Marshall Hayner talking about the METALLICUS platform and the loan protocol and how it's BSA compliant. And then we're going to show you guys right now, I'm sure Aqua probably has pulled it up, at the CU broadcast interview from the GAC, Marshall comfortably said this on a panel discussion. So it's not hidden information anymore. We just have to really, truly unlock our way of thinking. And instead of thinking in terms of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, start thinking in terms of long-term strategy. How, while this market is in this bear market cycle or this pullback phase, whatever you want to call it, can we accumulate more shares of these digital assets so that way we can come out on top when the market does turn around by having more shares of these blue chip digital assets by using the market's money and just compounding every single day, generating yield on assets we're already holding and taking that yield and just stacking it back on top every day in this repetitive loop. So Aqua, go ahead and let's hear what the gentleman from St. Cloud and Marshall Hayner have to say in those two posts that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's actually a few posts actually. So yeah, we'll see where the conversation goes though. All right, let me blow up this video. So this is a 5-minute snippet. I'm not going to play the whole 5 minutes, but I definitely recommend everyone who's tapped in right now, come watch this video in its entirety. It's super, super bullish. But what I really want to focus in on right now is what's the topic that we're talking about? DeFi. Listen to what Jed Meyer, again, the CEO of St. Cloud Credit Union, has to say about DeFi.
Banking Bitcoin by the end of the...
Let me find the snippet. Let's see here. All right, tap in, bend your ear. Really pay close attention to what he says right now.
Also testified. We're hoping to get that custody down, testifying at the here locally. And then as custody becomes the next conversation, which it is, we're actually... My EVP, Chase Larson's actually down testifying at the state Senate today in Minnesota on a bill for custody that passed the House unanimously last week, where he also testified. We're hoping to get that custody through. Our Department of Commerce supports it. The Bankers Association supports it. The Credit Union Network has really led the charge for us on this, the Minnesota Credit Union Network. And we're hoping to get that through, because as soon as that happens, Mike, my vault, which today is off-balance sheet self-custody for the member, and allowing them to use my data and my infrastructure, I can actually flip a switch and turn that vault into custody. And when I'm able to do that, I now have Bitcoin-backed lending to CD products, to redeploying that liquidity.
Let's run it back.
on this, the Minnesota Credit Union Network, and we're hoping to get that through, because as soon as that happens, Mike, my vault, which today is off balance sheet self-custody for the member and allowing them to use my data and my infrastructure, I can actually flip a switch and turn that vault into custody. And when I'm able to do that, I now have Bitcoin-backed lending to CD products, to redeploying that liquidity if I choose to back into the community, leverage it for loans, and really build out the rest of the use cases you hear everybody talking about, versus me.
DeFi use cases, right? What he just named was all of DeFi, collateralizing your Bitcoin, borrowing and lending, a CD as well. We're probably going to see in the future these credit unions offer a CD account for double-digit yields, right? So yeah,
You know, my mind is blown because he said the key word, flip the switch, when these credit unions want to flip the switch on. And that goes hand in hand with what this gentleman here from freaking Investify said in November of last year. Let me share my screen right here. When he was talking about how when these credit unions are ready, we can turn on certain assets, Bitcoin, Metallicus is coin. If the credit unions want access to them, we can turn it on.
Likely a function of when rewards mechanisms kicks in, and companies that will actually pay members or users for using stablecoins, just like we see cashback on cards today, right? But when that happens, we're already going to be there to support it. With our partnerships that we have in place, we're multi-custodial now too as well. We have our primary custodian is BitGo, the second largest crypto custodian in the world, only behind Coinbase. And the big difference between BitGo and Coinbase is BitGo does not compete direct to consumer. So BitGo is only B2B, right? Coinbase is eating credit unions' deposits for lunch. And so, we want to work with partners that can enable credit unions and not compete with credit unions. And the great thing about BitGo and their scale is they're able to turn on new coins as they come into the ecosystem. And so we just announced yesterday a partnership.
I'm going to keep playing it, but he just said our partnership with BitGo allows them to turn on new coins. Okay.
100%.
He specifically said that word, turn on. That's the same terminology as flip the switch, right? Listen to what he says.
Facts.
With Metallicus, and so we're not out there pushing Metallicus's coin for sale, as they're able to turn on new coins as they come into the ecosystem. And so we just announced yesterday a partnership with Metallicus, and so we're not out there pushing Metallicus's coin for them, but if credit unions want to use it, we're happy to support it, because we can do so turnkey, very seamlessly, where credit unions during implementation with us can just tell us what coins they want to turn on, so they can turn on USDC, USDT, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then if they want to turn on Metallicus's coin, they can. And so,
bro, what does the future look like when these institutions say, hey, we're ready to turn these coins on?
Trillions, bro. Trillions is what it looks like, bro. Trillions.
I tell you what, I will be a market participant when that day comes.
Yeah, facts, bro. Facts. And we got Marshall saying that potentially is going to be happening in 2026 with his recent prediction.
I shared that video of the gentleman from, if you want to talk timelines, the gentleman from the Bretton Woods Committee saying that in the next 12 to 24 months, you will see the Federal Reserve ready to offer crypto solutions to Federal Reserve clients.
And so I think the implementation of the Genius Act is going to be really, really important in how this plays out. The Federal Reserve has an important role to play in this as well. In other words, what kind of access is the Federal Reserve going to give to the new digital finance players? Just over the last couple of days, Kraken, which is a cryptocurrency company, was given access to the Fed, master account of the Fed. So that means that they can settle in central bank money. That's sort of the gold standard. I think I'd like to see the Fed go farther in this direction, because at the end of the day, cash at the Fed is the safest asset you can hold. There's no liquidity risk, there's no settlement risk, there's no default risk. So having digital finance companies that can actually settle at the Fed, I think, is actually the best case. Now, you can't go to that instantaneously, because you don't have the regulatory regime in place to basically put the rules for the digital finance industry on the same plane as what exists for commercial banks. So we're sort of in the process now of going through the conceptual phase to the implementation phase. And, that's going to play out over the next, I'd say, 18, 24 months. And then we'll sort of see what the true rules of the road are at the regulatory level. And then I think once the Fed sees that, then they can probably be a little bit more open up access to the Fed.
Yeah. And what do we know? Metallicus is fully in bed with FedNow, bro. Fully in bed.
Did you have any other clips that you wanted to play from this segment?
Yeah. So hold on. Let me find my other clip here. The one thing, too, I'll say is this. Take a look at this post. This is a recent post from Marshall. Now, again, this is just speculation. Nothing is confirmed at all, right? But just a couple days ago, he reposted this CoinDesk post that basically says Wells Fargo files a trademark for WFUSD, which is a Wells Fargo stablecoin, hinting at a potential crypto service of a US dollar peg stablecoin. Marshall decides to repost it and give a little quote from himself and says, every bank, every credit union, every institution, trillions unlocked into DeFi, that's metal, right? And I asked him, I said, hey, are you low-key telling us that you guys are working with Wells Fargo? He liked the post, but he did not respond, right? Which he probably can. I don't blame him. And again, this is just speculation. But when I bring this video up, I want you guys to really use your imagination. And what do you guys think? Because this video, which was, a few years ago, I want to say, listen to what Marshall says. Let me blow up my screen here. It's like 30 seconds. Bend your ear.
Huge Apple fanboy. I'd love to work closer with Apple. I'd love to work with Microsoft and OpenAI and some of these really cool emerging tech companies. But our focus, primarily Metallicus, is the payments and banking side. So, you know, JP Morgan, Bank of America, the too big to fail banks coming on board and working together with us. Our team is so blessed and so excited about, you know, what we're doing because we are having those conversations. And just like Brandon said, you know, rewind to 2020 or 2017, follow those 3-year cycles. These are things that we dreamt of in 2017. We'd love to have a conversation with JP Morgan, and then we're having one. We'd love to work with regional banks and talk about stable coins and create interbanking networks with blockchain, and then we're having those conversations. Huge Apple.
So, you know, he said that they were having those conversations years ago. Nothing again has been announced. This is my speculation, my opinion right now. But I really think that there's a strong possibility Metallicus can be potentially working with some of these big name banks. So it goes even bigger than just the credit unions. So that was the video. Let me just share this video. This is his prediction. Marshall's prediction goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now.
Crypto markets down.
Whoops. Listen to what Marshall said. This was literally like 2 weeks ago at the GAC 2026. Listen to what prediction he gives at the end of this.
So my predictions for this year are, you know, right now, all markets are down, right? We see the stock market is down, crypto market's down. So now is a time when there are a lot of people building. There's a lot of stuff happening in the background. You may not see it because it's not as loud, although I would argue it does feel kind of loud, even though the markets are down. Yeah. Things are going to change over this year where the market goes in up and down cycles. The next, I guess, bull cycle, you could call it, we will have this technology embedded into the credit union. So this year, my predictions are you're going to see the first MetalPay API Metallicus integrations go live in credit unions. Okay. We're going to begin to see the credit union and banking world get much more integrated with this tech. I predict by this year you will see the first credit union and bank-based stablecoins due to the new legislation passing. Right on. We're going to see some winners and some losers. And the losers are going to be the ones that fail to have interoperability and compliance baked into the chain. So I think by the end of this year, we'll see the first credit union and bank-based stablecoins. The Genius Act and Clarity Act, I believe, will pass. I think the guidance from Kyle, from Chairman Kyle Hoffman at the NCUA is fantastic. There's some things I have some comments on, but overall it's very good. And I think it's going to go through. And in doing that, we're going to have the next crypto bull run, if you call it, will be the institutional bull run. So it's going to be.
So the institutional bull run. And the one thing that I just caught that I did not catch before in this snippet is he said credit union and bank-based stablecoin. So does that mean credit unions and banks, right? I guess time will tell.
Yeah, bro. And then too, though, another thing, excuse me, he said, we will have this technology embedded into the credit unions. Cynthia Loomis was just on a podcast with Arena Birkin the other day, piping up the credit unions and talking about how they are ahead of the traditional banks in adopting digital assets and digital wallets and providing those turnkey solutions to their clients. Are you about to play that?
Yeah, let's play it right now. So this is a snippet from Senator Loomis, right? The big famous Senator Loomis, a bunch of videos of her giving talk track about how great blockchain is and Bitcoin and all that jazz, right? Listen to this sit down conversation that just happened on X earlier this week. It was like Monday or Tuesday. But listen to what Senator Loomis has to say. She's listen, just bend your ear.
One of the things that Arena said that made me happy was,
and just for clarity, that's her speaking. She said one of the things that Arena is doing that made me happy. Arena is one of the head honchos over at Metallicus, for those of you that don't know.
her work with the credit unions. And I have found the credit unions approach to embracing digital assets and using them to augment the offerings of financial products to their customers to be far more friendly to digital assets than the banks. And the truth of the matter is digital assets bring a whole new product line to both banks and credit unions that they can incorporate into their current business models. And we'll start seeing banks buying digital asset firms, credit unions buying digital asset firms, and vice versa. The difference is the credit unions are being much more innovative, creative, and receptive. The banks are being resistant and fighting this and not acknowledging just how rapidly in the 21st century we're moving to a blockchain-based and technology-based US dollar and other financial products.
So yeah.
The fact that at the beginning, bro, she gave verbal confirmation that what Arena is doing makes me happy. Coming from a senator, like that sentence alone confirms so many different things. Number one, that what Metallicus is building is, or at least adheres to the appeal of a congresswoman, bullish, and that she is very well aware as a congresswoman in her circle of what Metallicus is building, also bullish.
1000%. And for those people who are adamant about calling this a scam or a rug pull, do you really think Senator Loomis is going to have a sit down conversation with a scam or a rug pull? I think not. So yeah, it's time to start being mature investors in the space and really take a look at things with proper discernment and not just adopting weirdo opinions about this ecosystem. So yeah.